Hey, we're wrapping up a series today titled Summer at Nona, and I pray that you have had a great summer. And whether or not it's what you expected it to be, or if it did not meet your expectations, I hope that what you've experienced over the last couple of weeks, if you've been here at Nona, is some inspiring messages from people that really mean the world to me. You got to hear from Gina Butts, and a person who's an incredible writer and author, a dear friend of ours, and a member of our church. You got to hear from my personal mentor, Aaron Reed, a man who over a decade ago came into my life and really helped me walk through what it means to be a mature follower of Jesus, and to this day is a good friend who I count on, and my wife and our family are deeply grateful for. And then you got to hear from our very own Andrew Axum as he taught us about the way of Jesus and the story of the beginning and the end. And if maybe this is your first time with us, or maybe it's been a while since you've been with us, I just want to define a term for you that you'll hear from time to time at our church. It's this phrase, the way of Jesus. And this is what it means when we say that the way of Jesus is a lifestyle that practices the priorities of Jesus here and now. That the invitation to the Christian life is not simply to believe in a couple of things, to pray a prayer at some point in your life, and then get your, get out of hell free card and kind of like just live life that way. That's not what we believe following Jesus is about. In fact, we believe following Jesus is about something so much more important, so much more valuable, and so much more practical to your everyday life. That in the person of Jesus, we find rhythms, we find practices, we find priorities, we find a perspective that Jesus had, that when we apply the way of Jesus, the way Jesus lived, to our parenting, to our marriages, to our singleness, to our careers, we begin to live out and experience the promise Jesus gave us of an abundant, joy-filled life. And we believe that as a church family, our job is to go on that journey together, to know and take our next best step in following Jesus into the abundant, life-giving journey that he has invited all of us into. And so Andrew talked to us over the last couple of weeks about the fact that this way of Jesus, the way in which we kind of engage and follow Jesus, is like any story. It's got a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. And Andrew reminded us 2 weeks ago that the beginning of our journey, the beginning of the way of Jesus, is understanding just how much your Heavenly Father loves you. He knows you by name. He cares deeply about the intimate details of your life. And he's communicated just how far he's willing to go and just how much he loves you by sending his son Jesus to die on our behalf and then defeat death. So we know that if Jesus can defeat death, God can defeat every obstacle in front of us. And then last week, Andrew reminded us of the fact that there's an end to this story. That the end of the story looks like this: presence with God. That there's going to be a day when God's going to set every broken thing right. That everything that has hurt us before is no longer going to cause us pain. That there's going to be a day when there are no more tears. There's going to be a day when there is no more arthritis. There's going to be a day when there is no more receding hairline. Can I get an amen? There's going to be a day when God sets everything back the way it was supposed to be, and I will have a full head of hair. Anybody thankful for that truth today in God's house, right? There's a day when it's all going to be set right. But while there's a beginning, which is God's love, and while there's an end, which we're all looking forward to, you and I find ourselves in the middle. And that's what I want to talk about today. The middle. You know the middle. The middle is the space between where we want to be and where we find ourselves. You know what I'm talking about? The middle is the reality of the fact that all of us are living a story, and we're all in the middle of the story right now. We're still trying to figure out what it means to, follow Jesus. We still struggle with things that maybe we thought we'd stop struggling with. We still fight anger when we thought we'd be done with anger by now. We thought we'd be further along in our marriage or further along in our singleness, and we find ourselves over and over and over again feeling like we're taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and we wonder, when is the middle going to come to an end? Because the end looks beautiful, and I know the beginning's all about Jesus' love, but right now, the middle is a mess. You ever felt that way before? Because the truth is this. The truth is that the end is beautiful, but the middle, man, it's hard. And some days are harder than others, and some days are better than others, but the middle of our journey, the in-between, man, it's It's tough. It's filled with crazy kids and unmet expectations and a divorce we didn't expect to go through and a layoff that we were not anticipating. And all of that can just begin to cloud the story. And what I want to do today as we kind of wrap up our Summer at Nona series is I want to ask and answer this question. What do we do? What do we do to make it through the middle? What do we do to thrive in the middle? You know, my family and I, we take some time off every summer to be able to get a cross-cultural experience, to invest in our family, to disconnect, and to really find a rhythm of rest. We believe that that's a priority of Jesus. And so every year we try to go and find a new place to go and to visit that can accommodate our family of 6 and our good friend who comes along with us. So it's 7 of us walking through the airport. I mean, we are the family that is loud, obnoxious with crazy kids, and it's like the Red Sea parts. Like they create a new line in security for us because we're that big, all right? And so this year we decided that our cross-cultural experience would be going to visit the country of Ireland. And it was definitely a cross-cultural experience for me because in the first 2 weeks while we were in Ireland, I counted a whopping 3 brown or black people, all right? Yeah, it was nuts. It's like one of us just doesn't belong here. I kind of felt that way. No spicy food. I mean, like fish and chips is good, but like, you know, I need some kind of spice in my life, you know? It was a beautiful time, a beautiful country, an incredible place. Very restful for us. And one of the things that we really wanted to do is we didn't just want to stay in one place. We wanted to see the beauty of this country. I mean, a place where the Cliffs of Moher, there are key scenes in the Harry Potter series that are filmed right there. And the Skellig Michel, these beautiful, you know, mountains that peek through the vast, beautiful blue ocean where apparently scenes from Star Wars were filmed. But I've never seen a Star Wars movie, so I have no idea about that. Like, there's just some beautiful things there that we wanted to see. And so we did what any good, you know, tourist does. We rented cars. But we didn't rent a car because a minivan was way too expensive. So we rented 2 economy cars. And we thought that we'd be okay with that. We also rented 2 economy cars that were manual stick shifts, okay? Not automatic cars. And the reason why is because the automatics were way too expensive and we are cheap-o depot, all right? And so we got our economy manual stick shift cars. And we're driving on the wrong side of the road and the right-hand seat. So I'm on the right-hand side, left-handed stick shift on the left-hand side of the road. And this is something that you need to know about me, is that my dad didn't teach me how to change a tire or how to drive a stick shift vehicle. And so I haven't learned how to drive a car in a long time and never learned on a stick. Stacy, she grew up on a stick shift. She was actually in the movie Fast and the Furious. She drives that way as well. And so she was super excited about being able to, you know, feel young again, right? So she's got her economy vehicle and she's good to go. But I've only driven a stick shift for like 2 months in my life, and it was kind of halfway learned while we were early on in our marriage, and she still had her Honda, and I, you know, wanted to take it out from time to time. So just understand this, okay? Roads in Ireland are for the most part 1-lane roads. I do not know how to reverse or did not know how to reverse in a stick shift vehicle. And it was a crazy, crazy, crazy experience. And so one of the things we decided to do is go on the Wild Atlantic Way to see this beautiful picture of the cliffs of Kerry. Isn't that just gorgeous? I mean, just beautiful, beautiful scenic view. I mean, it's, you know, hundreds of feet up in the air and just a gorgeous, gorgeous view. And so we were going to go drive and see it that day. And the day started off great. We started at a chocolate factory. I mean, that's a beautiful way to start your day. The beginning is Jesus' love, right, at the chocolate factory. And the end is going to be this beautiful scenic view. But something happened along the middle that I did not expect. Remember, I don't know how to drive a stick shift super well. Like, I'm like kind of getting through it as we go. And so we're driving and the roads are fine. But in order to get up to this scenic look, you've got to be able to get up a hill in the car. Now, here's the thing, right? I'm an automatic driver. So how do you get up a hill with an automatic car? You just hit the gas, right? And you get there, right? Apparently not the way it works with a stick shift, all right? And nobody told me that I'm supposed to downshift as I go up the hill because the lower the gear, the higher power. I didn't know that. So I'm hanging out in like 5th gear, listening to Carrie Underwood, all right? Driving up literally. I was that rested, I was listening to Carrie Underwood, all right? And as we drive up the hill, I'm thinking I'm going to make it. Stacy makes it up just fine. I'm going to make it up just fine, except I don't. I drive, and eventually my car just says, I quit, I'm done. So it begins rolling backward. The car kind of shuts off. I'm rolling back. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I put the car in neutral. I'm still rolling back. I try to flip it back into, fourth. That doesn't work. Third doesn't work. Second doesn't work. By the time I get to first, the car's like, have you not got the idea yet? It gets so bad, I end up actually rolling not just down the hill, but into a ditch. And I stay there for 10 minutes alone because my wife is gone enjoying the scenic lookouts because she knows what she's doing. And a bunch of Irishmen keep passing me with their cars. Apparently, they're the nicest country in the world. They're not stopping to help this guy. They just kept on going. So now I'm stuck in a ditch. The car's in the emergency e-brake. Country music is playing. My 3-year-old's in the back screaming his head off, saying, I want to get out of the car. And I'm like, trust me, I do too, son. I want to as well. This cacophony of noise, right? I call my wife. She doesn't pick up. She says there was a reason because there wasn't reception, right? Okay, all that. The phone continues to ring. And eventually, in my deepest despair, when I call out to God, why have you forsaken me? I see over the horizon, my beautiful wife making her way down to save me. Now, here's the thing you need to know, all right? Some of you at this point might be thinking, Collin, it seems like you're in an emergency situation. What gave you the foresight to pull out your phone and take a photo of your wife coming to save you? It's actually not a photo, it's a video. And the foresight came in this place. I was sitting there for so long, I thought to myself, this will make a good sermon illustration one day. And that's why I have the photo. You ever been stuck? Like, not like that, right? You're like, we all know how to drive a stick shift, Collin. Like, that's your problem. Have you ever been stuck? Have you ever been between the beginning and the end and wondered, how in the world am I going to get out of this? Like, how in the world am I going to get to this beautiful picture of what's supposed to be in the future? Because what I'm feeling right now is I'm taking steps forward, steps back, or maybe I feel like I haven't moved forward at all. And maybe you're not a follower of Jesus and you've felt this just in your own personal life. Maybe your end is not a relationship with God. Maybe your end is just what you hoped would be true about your life. But maybe you are a follower of Jesus. And you know what it feels like to have this hope for heaven, this hope for a good, rich relationship with Jesus, and it just feels like you're stuck. What do we do in the middle? Well, here's what I learned in that moment, and here's what I've been learning as a follower of Jesus now for quite some time. That we won't make it through the middle unless we have the right people. That I needed Stacy, the right person, to be aware of my situation and at some point recognize, you know what, my husband is probably stuck. I need to go check on him. Could you imagine if I was there by myself without Stacy there to save me? I would still be hanging on the side of a cliff today. We need the right people in our life. And God knows that. God knows that the beginning is love and the end is his presence, but in the middle, he's designed us, he's designed you, and he's designed it, life, to work in a way where we don't have to stay stuck. We can make it through the middle. We can actually thrive in the in-between, but it comes down to one commitment that maybe you know, but oftentimes we forget. A commitment that changes the game, and it's this. Is that Jesus' way of making it through the middle is in community. That you and I at some point have to make a decision to say, I'm going to invest in a series of relationships of people who are going to walk the middle with me so that when I get stuck, I know they'll come and carry me through. And at Nona, we call this concept of community, this phrase that we use called community groups. Community groups are smaller gatherings of people who share life together and make a difference in their neighborhoods. It's the way that this growing church becomes smaller when 10 to 16 people know each other or doing life together on a consistent basis. And today what I want to do is I want to submit to you that if you want to thrive in your middle, if you want to see the depth of joy that God's intended for you, the fullness of following Jesus, the experience that you were designed for, it involves your commitment to say yes to finding your circle. Because at the end of the day, when you find your circle, you'll learn something that many of us in this room have learned over the years. That circles do what rows can't. That circles do small groups and community groups that gather through the week, they do things that can never be accomplished sitting in a row. Now, don't get me wrong, I love rows, and rows are important, and they're valuable, and they're significant. They're just not what the church is. The church is a community of people that know each other, walk alongside each other, gather together on a consistent basis to grow together, but living together in shared life so that no one gets stuck in the middle. In fact, King Solomon, who many would consider to be the wisest man that ever lived, he was incredibly wealthy, incredibly wise. He wrote 2 pieces of what we call wisdom literature, just these long and short phrases of really deep, tweetable comments that contain a significant amount of impact. And what King Solomon says about friends, what King Solomon says about relationships is really what I think God is saying to each of us today. And I want to challenge you to find your circle and ask yourself the 2 questions that King Solomon raises in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9. Look at what he says. He says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. Now don't get caught up on the numbers here. He's talking about this in principle. That the more, the merrier. The more hands, the less the work. That there's a reality that when there are more people engaged in a process and situation, it is a better situation for everyone. And this is what he's saying. And write this down in your notes. It circles. These community groups that we're talking about, these smaller gatherings of people that know each other and care for each other, circles create connection. And you and I need connection. He goes on and he says, if either one of them falls down, one can help them up. To modernize this, if either one of them gets stuck in a ditch because they don't know how to drive a stick shift, the other one will come and save them. He says, but pity, look at this word, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. I mean, can we agree that there are few things more heartbreaking than being stuck with no help in sight? I mean, have you ever seen somebody going through a financial situation that seems hopeless and you realize, man, they could have avoided that financial situation or they could have gotten some help in that financial situation if they just had some people around them that could have helped them know better or make a better choice? Let's be honest. Some of our worst financial decisions that we have made, we've made in isolation, right? Like nobody makes the decision to buy that thing that's going to give you a six-pack and make you look like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for 7, monthly payments of $19.99. Nobody buys that when they're in a community of people, right? Because that community of people will say, it ain't gonna work, right? It's when we're alone that we make our dumbest financial decisions. It's when we're alone that we make our dumbest relational decisions. When we run off the rails with our marriage, or we don't treat our kids the way that we should, or we make the regretful decision in our singleness that we never thought we would make. It's when we remain isolated and alone. That's when our biggest regrets come. I can't imagine what it would be like. But there are countless people who get the health diagnosis on the phone and don't know who to call or where to turn or who to talk to. How sad of a thought is that when our physical life falls apart or when our emotional life falls apart? This is not just some kind of cute words to think about. This is real truth in real data. Did you know that in the United States of America right now, 47% of adults, and it's a higher percentage for teenagers, consider themselves lonely? That they don't know who they would call in the time of crisis? Another survey was done just recently and polling people, and they found that 42% of people, when polled, when asked who their closest point of connection is, responded their television or their dog. Notice it was not their cat. But think about that. 2 out of every 5 people. Some studies 1 out of every 2 people. So lonely and so isolated, they would say that Netflix is their best friend because they don't have a point of connection. And you know this, that the most depressing, saddening, heartbreaking situations you see people are in situations where there's no one to pick them up. But here's what you need to know, is that for you, something is going to fall apart at some point. That it's not a matter of if, something financial happens. It's not a matter of if a health diagnosis comes through. It's not a matter of if something happens emotionally. It's not a matter of if something happens relationally in your life. It's not a matter of if. It's simply a matter of when. At some point in your life, something is going to fall apart at some point. And here's the question that I wonder. Where will the people you need the most be when you need them the most? See, the beauty of community group is that it gives you people who are there for you when you need them to be there because they are already there. Some of the most disappointing phone calls that we get at our church are people who call us saying, hey, I'm going to the hospital. Or, hey, something's going on with my kid. And they'll call our office. And we always love to respond. We always do our best that we can. And the first question that we ask is, well, are you part of a community group? And I would say over 90% of the calls that we get are people saying that they're not a part of a group because people that are part of a group already had their people that they called to help them in that situation. And we can't do everything because we are limited in what we can do. But you, together, can do everything that's needed for those that need you the most. And I was talking to my good friend Carlos about kind of a journey that he and his family have gone on. Carlos and Lori have been a part of community groups at Nona for years, and they went from being in a group to leading a group this year, made a courageous step to step into that space. And as they made that decision, they got the good news that they were pregnant with their third little one. They were super excited about this. And at the same time, a few weeks later, they got the heartbreaking news that their little one was going to experience some really difficult medical complications through some congenital issues that would be real about his development. And no parent wants to hear that. In fact, what the Reyes family had to experience, I would wish on no one as it pertains to their little one. And yet, as Carlos and Lori are walking through this process, I found out about it after people in their community group were talking about it. Why? Because their community group was there. Because Lori, who's a part of MOPS, our ministry to mothers of preschoolers, who are circles of women who get together to navigate the complexity of raising toddlers, as they raise those little ones, needing one another. They had the support that they needed. Somebody from their community group mowed their lawn while they were in Tampa at the Ronald McDonald House for weeks. People rallied around them and prayed. People picked up things that were left at their door, and they took care of their home and brought them food. From the MOPS community that Lori's a part of, they went to Tampa with somewhere between 60 to 100 handwritten letters of encouragement from people in our church. And moms and women went out to visit and spend time with Lori and Carlos. And I'm excited today, and we praise God that the length of time that we thought they'd have to be there was limited. They were able to come home at the 25-day mark for Lucas. His lungs are in a really strong place, and he's doing well. Can we thank God for that? Is that not awesome? But I think about that journey of Carlos and Lori. I get emotional thinking about it. Like what it would have been like if people weren't around them. And then I think about the number of people right now who are walking through divorce, who are walking through pain with their kids, who are experiencing a health diagnosis they don't know what to do with. And I wonder who's around them to take care of them, to be on their side, to be on their team. And here's what I want you to hear me say. You are not immune to this. It is not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And who are the people that you need the most? Where will they be when you need them the most? This is the beauty of community group. This is the beauty of saying yes to connection, is it creates the space for you to be known, for you to be loved, and for you to take care of others and be taken care of when you need it. Circles give connection. Here's the second thing. Circles give protection. Solomon continues and he says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. I love that phrase, overpowered. I think we could turn that to a more modern word today and say over what? Overwhelmed. Though one may be overwhelmed, two can defend themselves. I love the analogy here because he's using a military analogy. He's kind of using this kind of analogy of there's no man left behind. That when you've got a crew, when you've got a team, when you've got a circle, you know that you've got people that have your back and are going to protect you from some of the dumb you might do if you were by yourself. Like some of us, we need preventative health care, all right? You need preventative mental care. You need preventative decision care because you're going to do dumb on your own. Saw a wife say amen. Don't look at your husband. He goes on and he says, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. I love this. You know what's interesting about one pencil is that you don't have to be super strong to break a pencil, right? You can do that pretty quick. But you know what's really difficult? Is trying to break 10 or 12 pencils at the same time. You can't do it. You just can't break it. Because there's something about the collective power, the collective protection that the pencils give each other that don't allow them to get broken. And that's the power of community. Here's the thing. I know a lot of people that have been brokenhearted in community. I've been doing community group since Stacy and I have been married. We've never not been in a community group. We know a lot of people that have been brokenhearted, but we've never seen somebody get broken. Because when you're in community, you find people that hold you together. You find people who are on your side. You find people who protect your weaknesses. You find people who see it coming. Let me ask you this question. Who will be there to help you see it coming? And I don't know what your it is. We all have different ones. Like for some of you, your it, right? Your it is a financial thing. For others of you, your it is closing a box of pencils. For others of you, thanks, Stace. For others of you, the it might be emotional or relational. But I don't know what your it is, but we all know what it's like to see it coming, right? Like, have you ever seen parents interacting with their kids and realize, it's coming? You ever seen that before? You ever seen a spouse talk poorly about their spouse and think, that doesn't change, it's coming? You ever seen a single person working through stuff and there's a gap that they don't see and thought, man, like it's coming? Yeah. Here's what I need you to know, okay? Who is close enough in your life to call your bluff? Who is close enough to call your bluff? Who are the people that see it coming and who have the permission in your life to let you know, hey, a freight train is headed your way and I need you to get off the tracks. And if you don't get off the tracks, I'm going to knock you off it myself because I love you too much to see you get knocked down. We need that. Community group is not a place for Christian nice. Do you get what I'm saying? Community group is not the place where you go and you shake hands and you say, how you doing? Oh, everything's fine, partner. God is good. Like that is not the way the community group works. Community group is a place where you get to know people over a period of time and you can trust that they have your back. If you are single, let me talk to you real quick. Single people, look here. If you are single, you need to be in a community group. You need people around you to help you walk through the journey of what it means to find fullness in what God has called you to be single. That is an essential part. Community group is not something that only people who are in a married relationship are engaged in. If you're single or if you are single again, community group is for all of us. And if you are married, it should be the highest priority on your list to be in a community group. As Andy Stanley puts it, he says, every marriage needs some support now to avoid life support later. And you need people around you to help you see it coming because you don't know what's coming because you can't see it all on your own. 2 are better than 1. 3, not easily broken. Circles create connection. Circles create protection. And circles are the means by which you thrive in the middle. Which is why I would say to you, that as we turn the corner and we head into the fall, as the busyness of our schedules begin to pick up and the stress levels increase and the kids are off to school and programs begin picking up and we've got more extracurriculars and there's so much stuff going on, I want you to hear me say this, that the single most important thing you can do is to get yourself and those you love in a circle. The most important thing you can do for your kids is make sure that they're here on Sunday morning in Nona Kids with an adult leader, with kids their age, who are going to walk with them through the journey of what it means to know and take their next best step in following Jesus. That's what your middle schooler needs. That's what your high schoolers need. And that is what you need as well. And let me just tell you this right now. We've got a large percentage of our people that are already in community group. And if your thought is, I'm too busy for that, let me just be kind to you, but also be tough on you for a minute, okay? That's the most arrogant statement you can make about group. Because I promise you, there are people far more successful, far busier, with far greater responsibility on their shoulders that are going to group every single week. And I might even submit to you that the reason why they're doing so well, and the reason why their marriage is flourishing, and the reason why their kids are doing as well as they're doing, and the reason why their singleness is being lived out in fullness is because they're doing it the way of Jesus. And they're choosing the circle instead of isolation. The single most important thing you can do is get yourself and those you love in a circle. Because church is not just a place to go. Church is a people you know. And look here. Nona Church is not built on the talent of a few. It's built on the contributions of many. We are better together. And you need someone, and someone needs you. For me, community group is not like just a cute church programming thing that we do. For me, it's deeply personal. Stacey and I have been in community group since we've been dating, 16 years. We've been in some form of a group, either as individuals or together. 10 years of marriage, every year we've been in a group. And I don't know how we would have gotten through the pain of trying to figure out how to become one in marriage if not for community group. I don't know how we would have navigated our seasons of singleness if not for community group. I don't know how we would have navigated the friction of dating without community group. And I have no idea how we would have handled the transition we went through a few years ago without community group. No clue how we would have handled the diagnosis of my tumor and the fear and anxiety connected to a surgery and potential follow-ups and what all that can mean, what it would mean for us. I have no idea where we would be if it wasn't for our community group. If it wasn't for the 10 and 12 people that meet at our house on Monday night who knew I was anxious beyond belief about my health and knew that the evenings were hard for me, so they would send me a text message randomly and say, hey, just want to let you know we're praying for you. Or would meet me on a Sunday morning as I'm walking in to teach a message, scared to death about what the implications of these results are going to be, and would look me in the eyes and say, hey, we're here for you no matter what. God's got your back. Wouldn't say a word, would just come and give me a hug. I don't know where we would be without our group. And they were there for us because they were already there for us when we needed them. I just want that for you. I want that for every single person in our church, from the littlest child to the oldest among us. But let me make it personal for you. What if your dad had a group of men who walked with him with his anger issue? What if your dad had a group of men that helped him walk through the addiction? What if your dad had a group of men that helped direct him back toward his marriage? What would life have been like for you? What would it have been like if your mom, feeling alone and isolated, would have had a group of women that encouraged her to proceed forward in her walk with God? What if she had somebody to hold her up? How would your life be different if the people you love the most, who probably hurt you the most, didn't just attend church? Because guys, we could do that all day long. Didn't just attend the service, but had a group, a circle of ride or die people who said, I'm not leaving you behind. I'm walking with you through the journey. I'm going to pay attention when things are falling apart, and I'm going to be there to pick you up. What could have life been like? That's my hope for all of us. Is that whatever legacy we leave, if it's in our siblings or in our roommates, and look at me here, parents, in your kids, that we would leave everyone we love better off because we walked in the way of Jesus and we chose the road of community because it protected us from our own stupidity and it connected us to people who would hold us up in the middle of the mess. This is our next step. The next step for us is to remember that circles do what rows can't. And we have designed it at our church to be as easy as possible for you to find your people. It's as simple as going online and registering for Formation Group and saying yes to the journey of finding community, of trusting experts in this area who design and put together robust, life-giving groups that are going to help you know and take your next best step in following Jesus, help you flourish in the middle, and help make a difference for the people you love. There are no excuses. There's just when the rubber hits the road, will you walk in the way of Jesus? Would you stand with me as we pray?